Okay, fabulous. Let me do a couple things on here, and one more, and then okay. Hey guys, welcome everybody. Let's just do a phone check. Let's make sure, double check our phones are off, please. Not even vibrating, because we can always get a vibration going on. So let's just make sure those are off. We just ask that everybody is in this space for this hour and a half, and that we just be here. If you're new tonight and at any point you need to go to the restroom, right through the sliding glass doors underneath the deck to the left. Coffee back there. Please help yourself. Couple announcements. It's an exciting time right now because we are actually, I'm gonna do that second. It's exciting time for this too. Tomorrow is our special in-person mob. So the mob is the Moms of Battlefields. All the ladies, really. It just sounded nice to say mob, Moms of Battlefield, but it's all ladies. If you're an aunt, if you're a grandma, if you're a sister, you're all invited. The mob is all of us ladies, we gather. We always follow the same schedule as solution group. So our solution groups are on the first and the third Tuesday of the month. Our mob follows that on the Wednesday. So on Wednesdays, usually at 11 a.m., we all hop on Zoom together, no matter where we're at. Sometimes people do lunch hours at the workplace and they're calling in from there. Some people are at home, some people are on the go. It's just an opportunity for us to get to know each other more, and it's fantastic. But tomorrow is extra special because it is our quarterly in-person gathering. So we will not be on Zoom. So I apologize to those of you who are out of state that typically join us. We are in person at our house in Auburn. You need the address, let me know. It's just gonna be a lot of fun. So bring a side dish. Hi, there's a couple seats right here. Welcome, right here, these right here. Just go ahead. Yeah, just go ahead. Yeah. You just go ahead, take those. Just ignore what they'll say. You are Serena. Okay, got it. No. Okay, so tomorrow, 11 a.m., 11 to 2, we extend it. It's usually just 1 hour, mob is on Zoom, but on our quarterly in-person thing, we just have a big party. So it's a 3-hour deal. Bring a little side dish, join us. We want to have all you ladies tomorrow, so please join us. Excited about that. Okay, the next thing is our run for recovery. We are in full mode. Okay, so we need all of your help. If you don't already have on your calendar, Saturday, May 10th, it's Mother's Day weekend. This is our 6th annual run for recovery. We need all y'all there, and we're going big this year. Now, this is not just a little fun run that y'all are used to. Those of you who have been part of this every year before, it's not just a little fun run anymore. If we are going really big, we've got KBI, our media sponsor.
Over there.
1,000 people there or more. We've got all kinds of things going on, and I'll ask Andrea and Art to pop in. But before you add to it, I'm going to ask Tiffany. Tiffany's got some ideas to share that coming from Bill Wiggins, but I think it's Tiffany that's going to share that. So can you? There you go. Hi, Tiff.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, well, we got some exciting news. We have one of our longtime families of Battlefield that's got a challenge for families out there. So we have a new sponsorship level that we're going to roll out here very soon. So here's the deal. We've been going out and asking businesses and organizations to sponsor, to donate, to participate in this event. So now we want to make sure that our Battlefield families are doing the same. I don't know if you guys are getting feedback. That's why I'm slowing down.
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So we have one of our families that's going to start this sponsorship with $1,000. We have a goal of $5,000. And we want to show everyone that our Battlefield families are not only out here asking businesses and organizations for support, they are supporting us as well. And so we've got a really cool opportunity to do that. Bill Wiggins, do you have anything you want to add on that?
Am I unmuted?
Yep, we can hear you.
Before I say anything, is Linda Ridge. Linda Ridge I see her on there. She was a coworker of mine, and I love to see her on right now. She was the kindest, gentlest person ever in my office in 38 years. She is a wonderful person. So beyond that, we're kind of stepping up our game in the community, and we're asking people who haven't really been involved with Battlefield to be sponsors. They don't necessarily know what we're about. They've often not attended our meetings, our solution groups. Maybe they don't even have a family member in addiction, and we kind of go with hands out, hoping that they'll sponsor. And I think it's a great idea that we show them the way as a family of Battlefield, and show that, you know, we're on the court ourselves. We're just not out there with our hands out hoping that people will donate. We're actually participating in this, whether we have a family member in active addiction at the time, or we're just there supporting people because it's the right thing to do. So we thought it'd be a good idea to show that and represent ourselves, that we're on the court too, and that we're willing to make a contribution as a sponsor. So maybe that'll inspire them to do the same. So I thought it was a good idea. And
Yeah,
Tiffany's the one to deliver the message because she's very good at it.
Oh, thank you, Bill. So kind. So yeah, this is really exciting, guys. So we've got a sponsorship level. It's going to pop up. So when you go to the Run for Recovery page, that's battlefieldaddiction.com/run, and you click on sponsor, you're going to scroll down to the bottom and you're going to see Battlefield Family and Friends. It's your opportunity to support that. I believe it's going to show how much we've raised as we raise it. So if you want a little encouragement or inspiration to see where we are, you should be able to see that on our website here soon. So again, it's just a great opportunity to come up, show out. And so we hope you will join us in that. And this will, again, all proceeds that are received for this event go to the Treatment and Sober Living Scholarship Fund. So it's a great cause.
For help, and if you're not already on the Run for Recovery team and you want to be, make sure you reach out to me and I'll give you the information. Every Wednesday at 6:30, we're jumping on Zoom and we're having a powwow every week, you know, just a check in on how we're doing on all of our reach outs, and it'll help answer all your questions as well, on how you can be a part by joining us tomorrow night at 6:30. Do you want to add anything?
No, Andrea's got an announcement.
Okay, great. We're going to turn it over to Andrea. Let me get off spotlight first, Andrea, so they can see you.
Can you hear me?
Can you do a test? Go ahead and talk and we'll see.
Am I just talking about the movie room?
Yeah,
Okay, just real quick, tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the Federal Way Theater. David, what's the address?
That 1501
Commons.
32. Yeah.
4 o'clock, it's a national movie with starring Billy Baldwin. It's called No Address. Some of you might have remember about a year ago, we all went and posted Billy Baldwin in Seattle. He did some outreach, and I was in a documentary, We Heart Seattle was, and there's all profits go to half of the profits from now the movie inspired by the documentary. And you know, I don't know if the movie's gonna be good. I got 20 tickets, I need 20 people to show. Who's in? Okay, and we're gonna take a picture with We Heart and Battlefield, and we're gonna send it to the No Address producers, because I'll share half of whatever grant I get with Battlefield for this program. So we need to show up in numbers tomorrow, because again, that movie's proceeds, we filed to get some of the profits from that movie to our nonprofit. So there's more to it than just a movie at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. Okay, so please show up tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Brandon and Max, you guys can make sure we get everybody from Battlefield. If we have more than 18 people, we'll just buy more tickets and we'll sell out the theater. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock, No Address, Federal Way.
So all you mob, it's over at 2.
well, there is an
Just
address.
stay, hang out. You can just hang out with me, and then you can go straight there.
Dave, what's that address to the no address?
It's the big theater in Federal Way. It's on my Facebook page, We Heart Seattle, under events. But yeah. It's more than just a movie. It's 2001 South Commons Way, Federal Way. That's the address. for the movie, no address. Again, there's an opportunity down the road. I'll happily share with Battlefield if we can just get some power and numbers there tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Will the movie be over by our Run for Recovery meeting at 6:30?
Yeah, I'm sure it will be,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
All right,
Because you can even
I'll
do
go.
it from your car.
Yeah.
And then we've got the board, yeah, there's
Yeah.
plenty of time between that and then we've got the board meeting.
At your
or
house.
board- Yeah, so there's
Okay.
plenty, we're just making it all work.
But like bring a friend, here at Battlefield House, super easy to grab all you guys, popcorn on me, whatever, so just please come out tomorrow at 4.
Yes. And then there was another event in April, wanna go ahead and do the.
I've got another
Yes.
fundraiser, April 19th, if you'd like to, I've got all the volunteers, Max, Brandon, once again, Dave, Jason. And the rest of the gang, I need volunteers all day, April 19th for my event, we're gonna have about 500 people there. We will be using that event to highly promote Run for Recovery. So I'm gonna need you guys all in a We Heart vest, handing out your Run for Recovery flyers. And getting everybody looped up there at my event, which is called the Big Taste, April 19th. Again, it's on my Facebook page, We Heart Seattle, if you're interested. It's all there on my page, and all proceeds go to We Heart Seattle and Outdoors for All, another great nonprofit. So all these great things all go together, so please support where you can, scratch each other's backs.
And is that up on Broadway? We have no.
That one's Magnuson Park over in South Point or whatever, that military base, Sound Point or whatever, way north. Yeah. April 19th, just save the date. I mean, at least I need volunteers. There's non-alcoholic stuff. I'll give you a live band. President Sarah Nelson will be there from our council. Likely the co-founder of Nirvana will be there, Chris Novoselic, most famous bassist in the world. And he loves to hang out and mix and mingle. So if you're a Nirvana fan, he should be there. He is a rock star, so he's capable of flaking, but he is rolling in our group, and he likes to give out $25,000 checks. So he sees us in action. We want to make friends with these guys. So
And I think you've still got flyers back there with the.
there's a couple of some
As
barcodes
is-
and stuff like that.
As is our Run for Recovery, so make sure you take our Run for Recovery flyers, I've got new ones almost on the print with the added We Heart, but we wanna get rid of all those, and let's get rid of those, more's coming, so, take as many posters, if you can help us get these posters out in the community. We have the big ones for storefronts, we've got these sizes for the smaller areas, we've got this even half sizes for like the coffee shops and the counters, so please help us spread the word and get these out in the community, we appreciate it.
That's a Saturday?
This is a Saturday, Mother's Day weekend.
Oh.
That Saturday is the perfect way to spend Mother's Day, is this event every year, so, yes.
Angie, put them on the card.
Great, right there, take it. Awesome, all right, that's it for announcements, everybody's got your phones off. We're ready to roll.
We're gonna be kind of using tonight for a lot of shorts. So I'm trying not to swear as much as normal and clean up my act a little bit, and we're gonna, and then try not to offend too many people so we can put this stuff out. It was different. I told Angie today, it used to be different. 2011 when we got into this and we got sober. Battlefield became a pretty well-oiled machine, and by that I mean there wasn't this kind of clunkiness. There wasn't low numbers. It was a system that we had that we were doing 2 sessions a day with parents, and a 4:30 and a 7 o'clock session, and the room was packed each session, and folks had come out in droves because of one common thing. And for us, it was all types of suffering, and people came. I think that there's a thing that happens with suffering, whatever form or whatever brand it is, or whatever flavor of suffering it is. Suffering at some points gets curious, and when suffering gets curious, it wants leadership. So by that, what I mean is when our suffering gets curious, we want to gravitate towards folks that kind of have suffered in the same way we have suffered. And if you look at our Beyond the Battle, which is growing now, 7 new calls from families this week, that have lost. And our phone now is growing, or our organization is now growing bigger on the Beyond the Battle side than new families that we're helping. And what's gotten clunky is that from 2011 to 2015, it was smooth. If you wanted help, you called an organization that understood your suffering and had like-minded people, and that's where you went. And it got different around here. And that's when I do a group now, I have to kind of tie it into what binds us is this thing called compassion. And I looked it up. I found a working definition today. It says the feeling that arises when you are confronted with another's suffering and feel motivated to relieve that suffering. And that's one of the things that I see in that is that's what happened around here is this happened. So the feeling that arises when we see another person suffering and we feel motivated to relieve that suffering, and that's what happened when this epidemic hit. And that's what happened when it hit your family. There was a feeling of compassion that kind of kicked in immediately when it hit your family. If you were a loved one of somebody that's suffering from it, and what you wanted to do was you wanted to relieve the suffering of another person. And see, the problem with that is that I think there's types of compassion, and I think what we're talking about is a specific useful type of compassion. And I think there's ingredients to this useful. By the way, I hope you kind of get questions in your mind, because it's going to help with the shorts, with all this, with what we're cutting tonight. So it'd be nice if we had some questions that I can riff off of. But this useful type of compassion, this compassion that helps and not hurts. And I think there's ingredients to it. One of the things is that our suffering has clubs, right? We have different clubs in here. We have the suffering of family. We have the suffering of addict. We have the suffering of the people that lost. And our suffering has clubs. And when our suffering gets curious, we want to join our particular type of club, meaning we want to go around people that have suffered just like us. And the next ingredient is we want people that have suffered just like us. The next part of that is that people that have kind of moved down the trail or down the pathway of that suffering, right? And so now what we want is leadership. We want, when we get out of suffering, you want somebody that suffered just like you and has been able to walk a little further down the trail than you. But you got to be careful because it's not too far. See, I still have to see the person that's leading me out of this suffering has to be not so far down the road that I can't see them anymore. They have to be in a place where I can kind of still see and I can still relate to that person, and they can kind of talk me out. We were out doing outreach yesterday down on Kenton, and our particular brand of outreach says we are out there selling treatment. That's it. We're just out there selling treatment. We're not out there selling anything else. We're not saying that we're going to give blankets or we're going to do any of that stuff. We're out there just saying one thing: you need to get off these drugs and we'll help you. We believe that that's how you help a person is that's suffering from this particular brand is you have to get them off drugs. So I was out there with Max and Adam, and one of the things I noticed really quickly was Adam and Max are more relatable than me. That even though I've suffered from that same type of suffering and I'm in that club, I'm a little too distant to actually do the work as effectively as what Max and Adam are able to do. They relate. See, Max and Adam, I can still help that club. I can still be part of it, but Max and Adam have to see me down the trail, and then that person's here suffering. They can see Max and Adam here, and for me to help that person, I have to be edified and tied in by Max and Adam. I have to be they have to tell the person Art's been in the club too. He's allowed. And what we've had lately, and it's kind of like that. Don't worry, I know he's got houses and I know it doesn't look like he was in the club, but this dude's in the club. But they have to tell him. I can't tell him because they don't see it the way I see it. You see? So now we have this, what I'm trying to say is there is this useful premium quality compassion that's massively helpful. And what it says is, number one, I'm in the club. I've suffered just like you. I can't sit here with the moms of battlefield addiction and that have lost a child and say I'm in the club. I'm not in the club. It's going to be a little bit hard for them to trust me and to say, this guy can help me out when I've never walked out of that type of suffering. So I don't qualify. I don't qualify. Now, maybe I can be relating different types of suffering. Maybe I can do that. But really, what it's going to take is a mother who's lost, that's went down the trail a little further and says, come with me and we can be trusted. And you can trust me and I can walk you out of this thing. And you can see that I've went through what you've went through. What happened and what's made it clunky around here is that there's a brand of compassion of people that aren't in the club. And they're not in the club. See, I'm not going to run down to the LGBTQ parade and say, I understand their plight. I understand their fight. I don't understand it. I'm not in the club. So guess what? I can't lead them from their suffering. I can't walk them out of whatever they're going through. I can't fight for trans rights authentically. I have to listen. And the only way I can join that fight is I have to listen to them and see maybe what they want me to do. Can I donate money? Can I comfort you? What could I do? But see, there's a very dangerous thing, and we all know this, about this thing suffering, and about that thing about how do we take away a person's suffering? And the thing is that I don't think we do. I think that suffering is useful. I think that suffering is mandatory. It's part of the deal here. We're in this life and there is suffering, and we each got to take our own fair share, and we're all in a different club. And many of us are in many different clubs. I don't want to hear from somebody that's never lost their mom to cancer about how to lose my mom from cancer. You see, I've been there. I've been in with my mom in hospice. I've been there. So now I can join that club and I can talk to others that have been there and say, I know exactly what it's like to feel that. See, me helping parents, there was something that was a little wrong when it first started. And there was only one reason I qualified with that compassion, and they gave me the honor to lead parents of people who were suffering from addiction. And the reason why was that I parented a lot of kids in my program, that they saw that I was just like them. You know, another definition of compassion for me is we're the same. We are the same. You know, you ever see a man get hit in the balls? Yeah. What do men do when another man gets hit in the balls? We curl over and go, ooh. What do women do? They laugh. See, that's because there's no compassion, because we're not the same. Have you ever hit your head on a cupboard when you're unloading the dishwasher? You know, if you did that one night and then the next night you saw somebody else do it, you would go, oh. But if you hadn't done that and you see somebody do it, you might laugh. You might think that's funny. So compassion starts with, number one, we are the same. We are in this same club, and I can't have any level of authentic compassion if we're not in the same club. And that's the offensiveness of these folks in Seattle who have come in with their compassion and their lack of understanding of our fight, and to say, here's what you should do. How do you know? Have you ever been in the club of this suffering? Have you ever walked out of our journey? Have you ever walked a parent out? Have you ever lost a parent? So it's this beautiful system when we see what compassion really is, the useful, utilitarian type of compassion, the compassion that's massively important, and it's one helping another. It's saying, I've been there and now I'm here, walk out with me. And that's it. And what we do is we don't relieve their suffering. We walk beside them. We never take another human being's suffering away. How would you do that? How? If it says here that we are prompted to relieve another person's suffering, how do you do that? Tell me. Show me. And how would someone do it to you? This mother is here tonight. Welcome. She's just lost her son recently. How can we claim to understand if that hasn't happened to us? And how could we relieve her suffering? By saying what? What would it be? See, what could relieve her suffering and is coming here and meeting somebody else that she can look to for inspiration that says, you've been there. Is there a way out? Can I follow you? Will it get better for me? And that answer of will it get better for me can only be said to you by another mother that's lost their son to drug addiction. It can't be said by anyone else. No one qualifies to be in that club. The offensiveness of people joining our clubs that haven't suffered from it. It's really, really obnoxious to see it. So that's what happens. And when someone begins to have this kind of this taking away other people's suffering type of compassion, there becomes false motivation starts to engage in it. And it starts to become this kind of, it's not compassion anymore, it becomes sympathy. And how many people here want anyone to feel sorry for them? Nobody in the world wants anyone to feel sorry for them. And so it became this kind of clunky sympathy type thing in Seattle that we're no longer walking people out of their suffering, that we're leaving them in their suffering and kind of capitalizing on our own virtue and saying, hey, let's just let them suffer, not walk them out, and give them stuff. And maybe it'll get easier for them if we give them stuff. And so we're still, that's what they're trying to do, is remove the suffering from another person. But you can't do that. You can only walk people out. And you can only walk people out if you've been there. There's no other way around it. And by the way, I don't want to remove any of the suffering from any of you guys out there that are in addiction. I don't want to remove your suffering. I want you to feel every part of it. You know, addiction is this weird thing. It's this bookends. It started with avoiding suffering, and it will quit when you're ready to avoid suffering. Do you see that? You see, it's the same cause and the same solution. Addiction started because you were avoiding suffering. You found a way to avoid suffering. Guess what? You're going to stop using drugs now when you're ready to avoid suffering. When you have now figured out that the addiction is more suffering as a solution than it was, and it's too much for you to take. And so the cause is the solution. The cause of addiction is suffering, and the solution to addiction is suffering. That's what it is. And I can't do anything for you in between there. I can't help you. I can't relieve that suffering. I can't take it away. I can't do anything. And if I do, I might be sick. If I do, I might have this falsely misleading compassion. So we see how it's happened. When I say it used to be a well-oiled machine, it was simple. It was one helping another. It was a group of families that have come together to help other families that have all joined the club and said, we know the way out, come here. And it was a group of addicts that said, hey, come here, we'll show you the way out. We all right? I watched Max and Adam out on the streets yesterday, and to see the relativity, to see how they related, to see how quickly these people trusted him, to see Adam be able to be so close, you know, he's at like 40 days sober or whatever. And to see him at 40 days sober telling people that he's just a little bit down the trail and just come with me and it gets better. And to see them understand that and get it, because by the way, Adam knew everyone out there. Adam was like, just, hey, James, you know, I mean, they're like, Adam, you know, they're all talking about how Adam used to be. And I mean, I was like, last week? But he was relatable, and he was just a little bit down the trail, and he was part of the club. And so Adam is a crack smoker, and you just watched him, and you could just see, boom, boom. He just those were his people, and he just got out there with his people. And then I saw Max just get out, and he already knew everyone too. Oh, I know her. I know her. I know her. Those are his people. And this is what we kind of got to do. It's like getting to a place where we understand that you don't get to join this club if you haven't been in it. And you don't get to just go lead the fight. And I'm not running down to the LGBTQ rally and says, I know how to get you out of this, because I don't. But I do know a couple things in the way that I've suffered as a human. I've suffered with my mom dying of cancer. I got that one. I'm in that club. You want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. I got the one where I've lost people. I can kind of relate to parents that have lost, because a lot of these people that have been my kids have died. People like Jordan and people that are Nick and people that I thought of as my sons have died. So I'm relatable, but I'm not in that club, not fully. So you don't need to trust me. She is. She's in that club and she's walked out. But even her, just think, Angie's here on her journey, and there's a new fresh mom here. Well, what does that mom need? There needs to be somebody in between that pulls the chain and says, no, it's just a little bit. I know Angie doesn't. She looks happy and she looks like she's went through it and she's way up. No. Angie was here. I saw her. And now I followed her to here. So I've watched it. And that's the deal. You see? So this idea of what compassion is. Compassion has to be useful, not harmful. And what we have now is people that want to remove suffering. How did it work out for you when you tried to remove the suffering of your loved one that was using drugs? It didn't go very well. You got taken advantage of. Bad things happened. It wasn't good. So it's clunky now because we don't sit here in agreement of what the solution is of this suffering. Because now we have people that have joined that are trying to remove the suffering that have never been there. So they're trying medications. You could just probably leave it. I don't know. Did you get it?
Yep.
So now what we have is people that aren't in the club trying to help. And they're dangerous. And they do things that they don't understand the repercussions of. And we see them. And that's our fight now, is to be able to try to say, hey, it's not how it works. That's what's made it clunky is there's we all know in this room anyways, that when somebody's on drugs, and then you help them, and then they're still on drugs, that you didn't help them. We all know that. It's clear to us that if somebody's on fentanyl today, and then I have 100 organizations that have helped me, and then I'm on fentanyl today, maybe nobody helped me. I am still susceptible to the same death I was a month ago before I was helped by all these people. And we all know that if somebody's on fentanyl, the only way to help them is to get them off fentanyl. We know that. We know the only way to help somebody that's on meth and to relieve their suffering is to stop them from doing meth. And if that's not your goal, then what is it? Well, it's to try to have you maybe hurt yourself or maybe be partaking in that behavior with limited consequences. And that's what people are trying to do, is take away not the suffering. They're trying to take away the consequences. And if you take away the consequences, you will increase the suffering. Because remember what I told you is the solution to ending addiction? Suffering. So now we're taking away solutions. And we're saying, no, that's not how addiction ends. It doesn't end from suffering. It ends from some other. And any of you addicts in this room, you can tell me if it didn't end because of suffering. Just tell me how it ended if it didn't end from suffering. Tell me. Tell me if it did, if the consequences just didn't become too much, if the stuff didn't become too difficult. And now we see what people are doing. And if anyone in this room has been in addiction and then just right now somebody said, I'd like you to just come to my house and use drugs every day, and I will make sure you have no consequences and all the money in the world, and you can do it until you're ready to stop. You know how dangerous that would be. And you know, if you had that option right now, you might take it. And that's what we're selling in the name of compassion. We're selling that it's allowed. We're selling that you can use all the drugs you want in perpetuity. There will be no consequences. And we're calling that compassion. And there's where we stand. But what we really know now and what it is, it's always been. If you have some type of suffering, you get curious about how it ends. And when you get curious about it, how it ends, you seek out somebody that suffered exactly like you. If you've had a bad experience with a contractor, I bet you've got on Facebook and talked to other people that have had bad experiences with contractors. If you've had bad experiences anyway, you get curious to those bad experiences and you begin to find people that have also had those bad experiences. And you say, what's the way out of this? And that's what we're doing here. So with Beyond the Battle, with these mothers coming, one helping another, one that suffered, that's in the club, helping somebody that's kind of moved down the trail a little bit, one addict helping another addict that's moved down the trail a little bit. We have to be visible on the trail. We have to see that they were here and now they're there. That gives us the inspiration and the want to move forward. And then we have one family saying, I was there and now I'm here. And that's what we have. 3 aspects of this whole thing, 3 clubs, all in one organization, all saying it's one helping another, but you got to be in the club. And you can't just jump on in and start relieving suffering if you haven't suffered from it. It doesn't work that way. Hopefully we can talk about that and have a little thing and I can get some more, we can get some more stuff. But, you know, I really, really am on to this, this topic about utilitarian compassion. Compassion that is useful and utilized and makes a difference and makes an impact on other people's lives. And I think these 3 markers, 1, I'm in the club, 2, I've walked a little bit down the trail, 3, I haven't walked too far down the trail that you can't see me anymore. And I think those 3 are what qualifies us. Oh, it's scary.
You gotta do that once in a while, Art.
Oh yeah, I could get back closer to it.
Do that once every couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thing I remember is, I remember when I ran LDH and there'd be a news article that somebody died, a drug overdose, the comments were so cruel. I remember that, just, you know, another junkie dead, oh, good for them, BTD, and I remember being on there like, you know, hopefully it's not your kid, hopefully there's more people like me out here when your kid gets an addiction, there's nobody in your family. And then the switch to just how far it's gone now to, oh, he can't go to jail. Oh,
Yeah,
he's
yeah. Yeah.
It's just, it amazes me because people I remember were so cruel and I remember I used to get so offended and, you know, worked up and wanted to defend it, you know, people in addiction and they're humans. And now it's like, good God.
Well, given the alternatives between what we have now and what we had then, I will take the cruelty back. I will. I don't think any one of us, you know, I don't think anybody ever, one of the things that I've realized is not one time I've ever had anyone mad at me for getting them sober. Still to this day. And we've gotten people sober a lot of different ways with a lot of different consequences. We used to create the consequences. I remember when we brought somebody back in the day, somebody at the big house and they were getting ready to leave our program and saying, I'm going to get high. We were working with the parents and the parents would say, go pop all 4 tires, please. And we would just stab all 4 tires and go, you ain't going nowhere. Don't even try it. You know, that's how it was. We did everything it took to keep someone off drugs. And you know, that's kind of evolved a little bit, but I don't think we were wrong.
I remember talking to Emily and taking Suboxone so she wouldn't leave.
Yeah, I don't think we've been wrong. Listen, we've bought people drugs to get them off drugs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, unless you buy me drugs one more time. Okay, let's get it done. And that's a common thing that people request. And if we know they're serious and we know they're going to go, what do? Let them go out there and but that's a useful tool that we've had to grab. It's not the first move, right? Right now, our compassionate cities are using it as the first move. Let's buy people drugs so they'll talk to us. Well, that's because you're unrelatable. That's because you're not in the club. And you're handing out foil and you're giving away these things because you're not in the club. And all these people know you're not in the club. So they're coming and they're taking advantage of you. And so that they know when you're bringing them a blanket, you're just a sucker. I'm sorry you're a sucker, but all of us that are in the club know that you're a sucker. We've been in the club. So here we are. You know?
It's just, it's. As somebody who was, you know, an addict, and all, it's infuriating, it's infuriating, it's infuriating to see what's going on, and I've had to fight. He had me get on Insta or X or Twitter, I had to get off there, it was like gangster world, like they all like ganged up on me. Antifa people and all this stuff, and it didn't matter that I was an addict, homeless, needle in arm, didn't matter, I worked in recovery, they did not give a shit what I had to say, sorry, didn't give a crap what I had to say, because they didn't care, they knew better. And even when we were at the Federal Way Community or the city council, I even told the mayor when they were opening the housing for the homeless, all of you guys, you have, when the pain gets great enough, we change. When we're too fat, we don't want to be fat anymore, we, you know, we don't want anything, when the 5 stages of change, we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
When the pain gets great enough, then we change. And I have told them, you guys have removed the pain.
That's
You've
right.
made it so comfortable to be a drug addict. Back in the day, it got harder to get drugs. The stores could tell you were an addict. You couldn't just have a tent anywhere. Remember the kids would come in the houses. They were cold, they were hungry, they were tired.
Mhm.
Now people are giving pizzas, blankets, you can get drugs, you can shoot up anywhere, you park your RV anywhere. And so I told them, you have removed the pain, and these people's blood is on your hands, and you're removing the hope from these families and these parents and these friends is what you're doing, and you're killing these people.
It's become very dangerous, and it's misleading to people.
So riffed on Heather. Why is it that this is a tee up for you on, like, people, what's the precursor? What is their end goal? Why would somebody has lived experience, who can talk like Heather's talking, and yet she's discarded by this crazy, what is it that they want? What is their end goal that they're taking away the pain?
They discredits them.
Doesn't fit their agenda.
Okay, let's go on that.
Yeah,
So what's the agenda? What's the precursor to all this? What do they want?
Well,
there's money laundering going on.
well, let's not.
Profits.
I wish people were that. I wish I believed that. My favorite type of corruption, and I love some good corruption, as long as it's financial corruption. To me, that makes sense. If we find out President Trump's got 100 million under his bed and he took it from the government and he says, I'm just watching it for you all. I think, I can see that clear thing of why somebody would do that. I find Seattle corruption to not be about money. I just don't find it to be about money. I find it to be about a person's identity. And I think that what the goal is non-judgment. So what the goal is to say is that I'm a non-judgmental, inclusive person. Therefore, I find an opportunity in people using drugs on the street to show, by not asking them to change in any way, that I am non-judgmental. And I find I am not, and a big opportunity when I see people in the parks, sleeping in the parks, to say, you mean people are judging them. We're not judging them. To us, it's to each their own. My body, my choice, my body autonomy, and see how non-judgmental I am. And I think that that's the opportunity that this is. And to me, that's the corruption, is that it's this misled compassion. And, what do you call someone that's trying to remove somebody else's suffering? Really? What do you call somebody that gets their identity on removing other people's suffering?
Hero.
You call them a codependent. We've called them codependents for years. That was the definition of a codependent, was somebody's identity has to do with the removal or somebody that with the identity of another. So it's saying, yeah, if this person's not suffering, I'm doing good. And if this person's suffering, I'm doing horrible. And that's where it gets kind of mixed up. And
I
so,
think there's a two-part to that. I think COVID caused a lot of mental illness and depression and all that, so people are coming out of it and they don't know who they are, and they need a purpose in life, and they need to feel good, and so they feel good helping, and oh, you can't do this, and there's this weirdo compassion that came out of nowhere. It was leading up to COVID, but there is a part of these nonprofits and blah, blah, get money, they don't want the problem to be solved, we know that. And
yes.
so there is a two-part, I think, to that. They don't want the problem to be
But
solved.
what I
because they'll
found,
all go out of business.
what I found in this
And they
journey,
brainwash the public and the mass to think a certain way. They're looking for purpose in life.
but
So
what
now you got two together, just like, oh.
what you find in this journey is this. When you get with the people that are doing this, I was operating on an assumption, I was operating under this assumption that if somebody was housing a bunch of people and those people were using drugs in that housing, I was under an assumption that those people would need help. That if I met the people that were running this housing, that were allowing people to use drugs, I was under this assumption that clearly they would listen to my advice and we could get those people off drugs. So I was under that assumption. And I was under the assumption that somehow they believed they were failing in some way. But what I found is they are perfect in every way. They've achieved their goal 100%. So they think I'm crazy when I say they're failing. So you remember what their goal is. Their goal is to get people off the streets and to have no judgment on those people. So it's a two-pronged goal. It's to say, I don't judge them, you do, I'm good, you're bad, and I've now taken care of this person. And if the person dies in their housing, they don't connect the dots that they caused that. They don't connect those dots. And so it's oblivious corruption. And then yes, somebody has come up with an idea that this person, a doctor, whoever it is, would say, well, there's no way that this person can be sober anymore. So what they need is drugs to get off drugs. And when that happened, yes, there is money to be made, hand over fist. And there's where the money has come in, drugs to get off drugs. And they call that success. So if your loved one is on different drugs rather than the old drugs, they say they've treated them. And so, you know, I haven't seen blatant diabolical corruption. I've seen ignorance and false compassion. And I've seen people's goals are just different. If their goal is non-judgment, well, they need bad behavior to be non-judgmental about. That's it. And so non-judgment is the goal. And body autonomy, and people make their own choices. That's the goal. So they're not failing in any aspect. Our goals happen to be different. We've all been in it. We all know that people using drugs need to stop or they die. We know that. And we all over here on our side can feel the blood on our hands when someone doesn't. We take that in when we go to the funeral. All of us, when we go to the funerals, we all say to ourselves, man, could I have told him something different? Could I have talked to him differently? Should I have known they were using that day? What should I have done? See, over here, the funeral happens and it's just a perfect, well, that's what happens, but that was their journey. And we cared about them enough to not intervene. We cared about them enough to allow for them. And that was their journey. And I you know, for us, they've gotten to a point where they've said now that intervening does not work. Because their goal is it's trauma-informed care. So what that means is that they believe that there's parts of us that drive us to do those drugs, and that's the part that you have to therapy first. And you can't therapy that part if they're not using drugs. So we have these parts of us, all of us know, we have these parts of us that have us do these bad behaviors. And I can't really work with a person if they're not doing those bad behaviors. And I can't get them to self-determine, but they have left out the addictive qualities of these drugs and the obsession of the mind. And they believe that you can do therapy on a person while using drugs. And so I believe they're just misled. I wake up with considerable amount of sadness nowadays. Not because of I'm more compassionate or more empathetic than most. It's because I'm drained, because this fight is so big. And I wake up with sadness for youngsters. We talked to the Kiwanis Club today, and at the Kiwanis Club, they work with kids. And I told them there's two things that are going to affect all the kids in schools right now. One, the normalization of drug use. One, to have a kid in junior high, elementary school, high school, to see this normalized thing that's happening all over the streets, and to see a group of people saying that it's okay and saying we shouldn't stigmatize it. Do you guys know that all bad behavior has a stigma? Because it's bad behavior. So pedophilia has a stigma. It does. You don't want to do that. Really.
It's a sexual orientation.
But we are, but just so you guys know, in our state, they are trying to remove the stigma of pedophilia. And they're trying to say, we don't want to shame anyone that does it. And right now they talk a lot about stigma on fentanyl use and drug use. They don't talk about it on alcohol. They never protect the poor alcoholic, man. You know what? I love being an alcoholic. I love them. But a guy drives drunk and kills a family, they want that guy put in jail for life. Well, he's got the same disorder that the guy that's doing fentanyl does. And he's just using a different medication for his disorder. So now why are we still punishing these poor guys that are drinking and driving? What's wrong with us? When they're actually saying and trying to pass laws that say if a person is using fentanyl, they should not lose access to their kids. And they're decriminalizing if the kid dies and saying if that kid dies, we shouldn't punish the parent. Except they'll punish a parent if you forget your kid in the back seat. And that's truly a mistake. But not if you're intentionally using fentanyl. They say now, let's just get them a lockbox and let's lock it up. And like a fentanyl addict is just going to go, hey, where's my fentanyl? Let's get that locked up, honey. I got to go to bed. We can't have the kids grabbing it. The guy's just locking up his. What's the code again?
Art on that house bill?
Do you remember the code?
On that house bill, what they're doing is trying to change the wording on it. So then it has to be intentional. They have to be
Yes.
able to prove that it was intentionally there to kill their child, that they intentionally did it to kill their child in order for them to be charged for murder.
Yes.
Negligent for having a poison in your house. that-
Because-
Other than just being negligent for having it laying around.
Like a loaded gun.
The point is with the stigma thing, we have an epidemic, and the reason we have an epidemic is because drug addiction used to be, they claim, and most of us would say that it used to affect a small marginalized population. That the most of the people that were using hardcore drugs were from abuse, trauma, abandon, neglect, not good families, right? And that's how kind of it was in the early 2000s. That's how it was in the 90s. It was like anyone doing heroin around here in the 2000s was probably an orphan, probably like abandoned, it wasn't. But see, when you have an epidemic and you remove the stigma, now it's okay for the quarterback of the high school team to do it. Now, the reason this epidemic has spread is it's because it's no longer just affecting marginalized populations, expecting upper middle class families, all families, everyone now is there. That's why there's an epidemic. See, they say, well, there was an epidemic because of, or this thing is caused by trauma.
Poverty, racism.
Poverty or racism. So by that being said, that's removing the fact that it's caused by drugs. See, what I mean by that is if we have a drug epidemic, then when did we have the poverty and racism epidemic? What year was that? So when did we first have the trauma epidemic? So if addiction is caused by trauma and now we have an epidemic, when was the trauma epidemic? Or was it not really a trauma epidemic? Or in about 1995, did parents become less disciplinarian? They become lighter on their kids. Which one happened? We had a good family system. We had it all. This still happened because still to this day, I really truly believe that the cause of drug addiction is drugs. I've seriously never met a drug addict that hasn't done drugs. I haven't met one yet. And they tell me the cause is trauma. I've met millions of people that have been traumatized but don't do drugs. But I've never met one drug addict that don't do drugs.
But it's a disease. They
Yeah.
just get it, don't they?
Yeah. Well, here's what I've said. It's a substance use disorder.
Uh-huh.
Well, how do you know you got the disorder if you never do drugs? If it's a substance use disorder, shouldn't we be able to figure out if somebody has it before they use drugs? But how would we know? So you can't figure it out. So it's a disorder that's onset and active only when I use drugs. Okay. That is a very unique disorder. It only comes into play when I do this particular. I have a porn disorder. Porn use disorder. Let's roll that one out. Your wife's knocking on the door, honey. Disorder. Yeah. Can't get enough. Well, would you have had that if you didn't watch porn? I have a shopping use disorder. Could that have happened if you didn't shop? We're not even rolling it out over to the poor gamblers. God, they got a gambling use disorder. We're not rolling it out to anyone. It's just now been applied to opiates.
The smash and grab, oh, they need their hungry.
Yeah.
They need to pay their rent. So
Yes.
They're drug addicts. I remember telling him when we watched it, I go, no drug addict paying rent with that. Paying rent, like, how are you?
You're disconnected.
It's I'm very disgusted. I get crazy.
All right, more question, comment.
All to say with the kid thing that he told me that a while back, I couldn't believe that because I'm a true testament that my parents kicking me out, taking my kids is what saved me.
Yeah, yeah.
It's how I found you guys, it's how I got clean, how I got sober, I'll have 6 years in October. Them kicking me out because I was stealing their stuff as a drug addict. I'll never forget, there was one solution group a long time ago where a guy came in, I want a vacation, I left my daughter on and he goes, so you let your heroin addict daughter
Yeah,
in the home while you on vacation and you're surprised your stuff was
Yeah,
gone?"
yeah.
Yeah, my parents. kicked
Sounds like
me
you're
out
the
when I
problem.
stole their stuff and I wasn't being a
Yeah.
responsible mom, being unsafe around them, but thank God
Yeah,
for that, seriously.
yeah.
And it's just, it's infuriating to me what
So
I
the-
see going on in the state.
I told this Kiwanis Club the other thing too, and I said, removing the stigma and normalizing drug use is gonna kill our kids. And it's gonna lead them down paths that they shouldn't go. And we've also done another thing, and we've legalized marijuana. And what we did when we legalized marijuana was we didn't really regulate the potency. And so now now the marijuana has to be more potent to market it better. So the guys that are selling the most marijuana are also selling the most potent marijuana. And the most potent marijuana is causing kids to go into instant psychosis. And it's having the same similar effects as meth. And so our state with its policies have really done a disservice to kids. And it's now currently doing a disservice to, and by the way, opioid use disorder, the reason we're not saying alcohol use disorder, we don't care, we say alcoholic still. The reason we're not saying pot use disorder, the reason we're not saying shopping use disorder or gambling use disorder, the reason we're not saying any of that stuff, or adultery use disorder, or overeating use disorder, because there's no medication for it. There's only opioid use disorder, which has a medication called methadone or called Suboxone, and we have to say that in order to treat it with a medication. See, if it's an addiction, it's got to stop. No one wants an addiction to continue. But if it's a substance use disorder, well, that seems like it has to keep going. They have a disorder, don't you know? And that's where we treat that disorder with drugs. I see all kinds of clubs in here. You know, we each have our own suffering club. I urge you guys, a lot of you guys that are in the back that are in the program or living in the houses, if you're not moving down the trail and reaching out your arm back and bringing somebody along with you, you're not going to stay sober either. And these parents that are coming from beyond the battle, finding purpose in their suffering, to join a club and to say the purpose in my suffering is to bring some people out of suffering. We never say remove their suffering, because who are you to do that? Who are you to remove someone else's suffering? Who do you think you are? I'm not here to take any of these kids' suffering away, and I'm not here to take any of the family's suffering away. That's ours. The way we remove suffering, the way we get through our suffering is we be with it. We be with it. We actually start having compassion for our own pain, so we can relieve it ourselves when we start having compassion for it. When we start understanding it, when we start looking into it, when we start being with our own pain, we actually grow. That's how we grow. And that's the learning tool that suffering is. It's supposed to be a learning tool. It's supposed to prompt growth. And with that growth, what else would cause growth? What do we know of that causes growth? Everything that causes growth is hard, is difficult. So maybe it's God. Maybe we're suffering because God's granting us this opportunity to suffer. And maybe we have to learn from it. And the only bad suffering is when people kind of want it to continue. When people push it away and avoid it and don't want to be with it and say, I don't want any of this in my life, and turn their life into avoidance of that suffering, then that causes more suffering. It's only when we turn and face it, and helping somebody relieve their suffering is simple. Help them turn and face it. Help them be with it. And you can help them be with it for 1 cent only if you're in the club too. And nobody wants your help if you ain't in the club. Not easy. You better have a very similar story that's relatable, but you probably must be in the club. I always wonder, I've seen all these growing, Beyond the Battles, our growing arm of Battlefield. And I'm always wondering if I can help. I wonder if I can help them. I wonder if they'll let me. I wonder if I can earn their trust. I wonder if they'll see that my suffering over here is relatable to their suffering and they'll follow me out. I wonder. But I don't count on it, and I'm not entitled to it. And I'm not here to say that I get to do that. And the offensiveness of people that believe they can just help a club that they haven't been a part of is grotesque. It is really, really ugly. And it's really, really false. If you want to help a drug addict, you all know you better go to school first. You better go to school. You better have some. And after you go to school and you get curious and you see how smart they are, and you now get curious about how smart a drug addict is, that's what I always say right now. 100% certainty the drug addicts on the streets around this county and this state are smarter than everyone helping them. Absolutely 100%. And we have people that are smarter than, and they're providing sympathy with people that are smarter than you. Guess what? They feel sorry for you. Yeah, they do. A drug addict on the street that you're bringing them a cup of hot chocolate, they're looking at you going, you need to get it together, dude. What in the hell's wrong with you?
They'll take their own compassion usually against them. Who made up the thing about the stigma, right? Like drug addict on the street.
No.
It was about these bureaucrats or these people.
Well, remember guys, we were all sitting there in the trap house together. Remember, we were in the big trap house together and we were like, only if they would remove the stigma.
Yeah.
Remember all of us? We were like, what are they saying about it? Guys, You know, all this guilt and shame. You guys want to go get more drugs? You know, I always like that one too. The guilt and shame made me go get more drugs. It's the guilt and shame that made me do it. It's like if I did, you know, I'm having an affair on my wife and she goes, "You need to stop." I can't. The guilt and shame makes me go do it more. It's insane.
That's what the, maybe talk a little bit about the meeting we had with the CEO of the King County Regional Homeless Authority, who sent her chief equity and impact
Yeah.
staffer, who started to talk with her hands over her face. She couldn't believe her own words. Remember that? She was like,
Yeah.
it's the shame. We're
Yeah.
like, so, you know, she tried to convince
Yeah.
us that it was all those things.
You know, we all know that there is that waking up from doing drugs for many days in a row and wanting to get drugs because you don't want to face what you've done in your life. We all get that. We've all been there. And you, as you've screwed up more, you need more drugs to avoid the suffering of what you've done. And we all get that. I wouldn't necessarily call that guilt and shame. I would call that I don't want to face my life.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's their premise is exactly right. Like, you know, don't shame me for eating chocolate cake tonight for dinner because it'll make me want to eat more chocolate cake tonight for dinner. And I just find that insane. And what actually makes a human change is guilt and shame. In my opinion, a lot of us sitting here started feeling we had to like start facing that guilt and shame. And we had to look at it and go, you know, my behavior is not great. It's hurting people. And I feel kind of guilty about that. I feel guilty that I don't have my kids. I feel guilty that my kids are growing up without a parent. I feel guilty that my mom doesn't sleep. I remember feeling so much guilt at one point with my family when they asked me to quit doing drugs. I remember the thoughts. I wish they would die. My family would die so that I could use drugs guilt-free. I had that thought. I hate that you guys feel this way and I'm making you feel this way, but to me it was preferable if I could just keep doing drugs without the guilt. But there was a sense of I'm not who I'm supposed to be. This isn't me. And it was created for me by other people's standards and requirements. I liked it. I liked that they cared more about my life than I did. And it felt like love to me, that they demanded more of me than I did. And if they didn't demand more of me than I did, would that have been love? What would that have been if they were allowed for me and said somehow that I'm less than them and I don't deserve that life and I have a disorder and I got to keep doing what I'm doing because poor Art, he can't do any better than how he's doing. No, my dad knew I could do better and he required of it because he loved me. He drew that out. Yeah, it's when we're talking to these folks, they're not in the club. We're not really finding many people that are helping in these ways that we're talking about in the club. They're people that have went to Brown College, Harvard, people that have now been professors at the UW. I don't know how a professor at the UW relates to any of our suffering. I don't know how you could relate. And I don't know how you could put yourself in the mind of a drug addict if you've never been one. I don't know how you could understand. We all understand it, right? When I say it, guys, I don't know if people can understand the obsession to use. I don't think people understand that when I have an obsession to use, I'm already lying for next week when you're trying to catch my last week's lies. You know, I'm a week ahead of you on lies. You haven't even, you don't even know what you're up to, you know, and that's how it is. My dad was catching 3 months. He was 3 months behind on my lies. He's looking at the mail, seeing something draw in the mail. I was like, that came in the mail. That was last year's lies. And now he's trying to keep up with today's. Dude, you got no shot. I'm obsessed. You're forgetting that I need to use drugs today and I need to do it by all means. And that right where you're yelling at me about this light, my friend Adam's out stealing your saw in the shop, right? Yeah, I've sent him out there while you're not looking and he's got your shit. Yeah.
You know, you gotta look at the institutions of higher learning you're talking about, right? Because if you talk about where their data is, people always want to talk about the data they have. And it's like, well, UW study, I always share UW study.
Yeah.
UW Who?
Yeah.
You got out here, okay, Regional Homeless Authority came to the city council meeting in Federal Way. And they said we did this point in time, we counted all the homeless people.
Yeah.
Why they're homeless and all that, and said that 21% because of drug addiction, 28% because of mental health, and like 60% because they're just poor, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how'd you do that? And they said, well, we had these really trained people go out and ask other people and get all the data. It's like, oh, cool. And then they asked them later, they said, okay, well, how did they, what they do? And they said, did they do assessments on the street? Or, oh no, it's self-assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they're using, really, self-assessment. Are you a drug addict? No, I'm not a drug addict.
Yeah.
I don't want that on my record, when I go
Yeah,
get a job, and I wanna not
Well,
put that on there.
There was a time where we met with the city of Federal Way and it was in my office in Federal Way and I brought Dave. And the meeting was about Federal Way homeless people. And they began to blab and blab and blab. And I said, well, here's Dave. He's a Federal Way homeless person that has gotten off the streets and now is a drug and alcohol counselor. Does anyone want to hear from him? Answer, no. No. In fact, not only didn't they want to hear from him, they said he doesn't know anything that he's talking about.
We know better than them.
Yeah, we have the data. I was like, so you know that you go over to Pizza Hut at 10 p.m. and get the old pizza? You got that data? Or is that just Dave's data? Yeah, that's true. That's where Dave went to eat. I know that. Yeah.
This is here, that's absolutely not correct, because if it was the other way, let's say it was organically homeless people and as, okay, the rent's going up, COVID, blah, blah, blah. They're not the ones leaving the trash and the foils and the needle and the garbage everywhere.
Yeah.
So if that was the-
Yeah. So who's doing that?
if that was the case and it was less drug addicts and it was more organically homeless or whatever, then why am I seeing somebody bent over on every corner everywhere? We
Well-
would see
Hey,
that.
you know what the
If the
response
numbers
is?
were
The
switched.
response is, hey, ivory tower, white privilege.
Yeah. And I was curious one time down in Vegas, it was a little different down there. And me and Angie were driving and you notice something when you're driving around Vegas. And if all of us tonight, of all you normal parents that have never been drug addicts tonight, if you somehow found yourself homeless tomorrow morning, you would be doing one of two things. You would be looking for a job or looking for a place to stay. Now, as you drive around Vegas or Seattle, find anyone looking for a job or a place to stay. They got shit to do. They are busy out there. They got shit to push. I mean, they are busy doing something, and it ain't looking for a job and it ain't looking for a place to live. I mean, just imagine that right there. You, as a normal human, are homeless, but yet not looking for a home. What the hell's going on?
That's the stigma right there, though.
Yeah.
You can't talk to us like that.
Yeah.
No, but that's what we all know it's not true, but that's what we're being told is what we see with our eyes and what we hear with our ears isn't happening.
Yes.
Because Dow Constantine said that too. It's not drug and homelessness, it's the rising cost of rent, blah, blah, and I'm like, so you're telling what we see isn't happening, but it's
Yeah.
not like we're done.
I live in this world.
Those are the things we're fighting up against, is they just lie.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
How do you reach someone that's so set in their identity without just saying they're wrong? That doesn't work.
yeah.
Can you repeat the question for those that on Zoom?
So how do we reach someone that's so set in their identity without telling them they're wrong? This stuff that they have is what's known as a mega belief. So it's the equivalent to trying to say that somebody who's dedicated their life as a Christian pastor, it's the equivalent to telling them Jesus doesn't exist. That's the equivalent. So a mega belief means that not only is it a belief that I have, it's that my very identity and everything I do in my work depends upon it. So everything I do is based upon this belief. And if we dismantle that belief, we leave people lost. We leave people without nowhere to turn. So you have to be able to provide what we have to do. So say I have a mother that believes that she's helping her child by buying them drugs and by enabling. Well, her whole identity is based upon that love and care that she believes she's providing. And if I just tell her she's wrong, she has no outlet to show that she loves and she cares. And so we have to be able to, in reaching, we have to be able to actually show a proper system of help. We have to demonstrate it. We have to be able to demonstrate, hey, this is where you could turn your work. But right now we're in trouble because this is a mega belief. And only when a mega belief is knocked out by think of a mega belief like 6 engines propelling a plane. You can knock out one engine, that's the belief's still there. You can knock out another engine and the belief's still there. You can knock out all 6 and then maybe finally you can get someone to turn. But that's what we're up against. And what we're having to do now is just not talk to these folks and make our thing available, to make our thing just as big as their thing. And so that parents know that there's an alternative to methadone, there's an alternative to Housing First, there's an alternative to this stuff, and it exists, and it's here, and it's you all, and we're all in the club. And come over to our side and we'll show you the actual way out of suffering. Because what we're seeing over here is that people are still suffering, that no one's finding their way out. Right now, if your loved one is on the street, you're suffering. And there's somebody coming to ease their suffering so they can stay longer. And right now, if you're a family member, you should be very upset with that. And you should be upset that you can no longer help your loved one and they think they can. And that's the real offensiveness to it. I had to kick my loved one out because I love them so much. And now you're going to provide a house for them. And what do you tell me? That I didn't love my kid as good as you? What are you trying to tell me? And that's the message that we need to send from family members. To say, what if we did this? What if you showed up to me and you said, my kid's doing drugs in the basement? And I said, do they have plenty of heat? Is there enough blankets down there? Have you bought one of those aluminum Reynolds wrap Costco thing of foil so that they can just rip it off? Have you done that? Okay, cool. So they got enough foil, enough heat. Well, are you bringing them food? We got to make sure they eat. Are you bringing them food down? And then, are you cleaning up after them? And do they sometimes poop in the bed? Well, we want to make sure we don't shame them for that. We just get the sheets cleaned up. If I told families this, I would be a lunatic. But that is precisely what they're doing. Precisely. Oh, poor guy pooped on the street. Let's start an organization called the Poop Scoopers. And what we'll need as a charity, as the Poop Scooping charity, we'll need people to poop on the street. And if they do poop on the street, we'll be so excited because our little units can run down and scoop this shit up. And meanwhile, the guy's like, sweet, I don't have to walk to the bathroom anymore. That was getting tiring. These idiots are going to come clean up my poop.
Fundraiser for the poop.
Yeah. Yes.
Next Thursday.
Yeah. No,
Next.
I mean, I'm not.
Paying rent for that. next.
I'm not. No, that's happening. We're not there was in San Francisco, they did it. You look it up. And that was one of the first moves back in the day, the Poop Scoops teams. I'm telling you. This is where people this is how they want to help.
Did they hire people with lived experience?
Yeah. Yeah, it's but how far is too far? Right? How far is too far? If you look up a friend of Andrea's named Grant Denton, if you look him up on YouTube, he's a great speaker, guy in recovery, AA guy, whatever.
What's good name?
Grant Denton. And he's just charismatic, great guy. And he said that they lived in a parking lot next to a church and they could see the church. And every day they had to get out of their tent and they had to walk over there at noon and get lunch. But sooner or later, they just figured it out. These dipshits will bring it. So they laid in their tent and they don't go today. They'll bring it over. So all of a sudden, the church just started delivering to the tents. Yeah, like, you know, and you just imagine how that went down the first day. It's like, hey, these dipshits will bring it. Just lay here. And they did.
In Seattle, if you go to some of the encampments, the mutual aid activists will print out QR codes and put them on the tent, so you can just go through and cash out them. I mean, that's just taking away the bottom entirely.
Yeah.
Wish I would've known
You just
that.
get a little ding, you're laying there. Ding. Mary has sent you $20. Way to go, Mary.
When we were at Kiwanis this morning, God bless these people, you know, we prayed, we sang the Canada now anthem, we pledged to the flag, there was a Kiwanis song,
Yeah.
the whole ritual. But to your point, at the end, they go around and they put happy dollars and they acknowledged our presentation, but one gentleman made it very clear, he's like, I work for an organization that really disagrees with your philosophy that one should be treated through detox or mental health before housing. But I really appreciated your honesty and your rawness. He put $1 in there for us. He goes, it just goes to show you really just need and both. You know, kind of instead of having the argument of you're right, I'm wrong, you do you, will have this option and just expand the available services is how you get out of arguing and being divided. Is just say, okay, we'll do and both.
Yeah.
And that was I thought very statesman of that gentleman today.
For him, but again, he said something very poignant in the thing. What he said was, once people are stabilized in their own house, they will want to stop using drugs. Now raise your hand if you've been addicted. Raise your hand if that is true for you.
Oh, you're talking about the housing version.
Yes. So let me ask you then, Grayson. You what do you mean by that? You were using drugs actively, and then what happened? Well, you were still using. You got your family together. How'd you do that?
I wasn't able to stay at the apartment, but once I finally stopped using, I was able to go back.
Okay, well that's different. They didn't go keep using and come on in. No. Okay, good. Well, that's what if they did say keep using and come on in. Okay, it's exactly the point. And that's it. And so where we call people getting stable is called treatment. They have a roof over their head, they have 3 meals, they have a bed. That sounds a lot like a house.
Well, what do you do with all their stuff?
Yeah.
They can't put them, they got 2 shopping carts full of
Yeah,
stuff. You
we
know?
met a girl the other day yesterday on the street of Kent, Nikki. This young black girl, and she's pushing, 3 shopping carts full of shit, and we're watching her go crazy and be mad at the shopping cart and try to push it across the street. And we kind of just asked her, we're like, you ready to, and it's all garbage. I mean, there's nothing of any. And we said, are you ready to let any of this go? And she was like, no, she actually was like, I'll probably let all that shit go. Yeah, but what we found yesterday and what Max found today was everyone that Adam and Max talked to have not been asked to go to treatment.
Yeah, when I was ripping and running, no one ever asked me to go to treatment.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. I was everywhere.
This is how easy it is, just so you guys know. Adam was ripping and running. This will be their last. He was out there doing it. And, me and Adam, I get mad at him for still going back and using, and we've been friends since elementary school, so we have a different relationship. And Adam was in jail recently, and when he was in jail, he just became on my mind. I was like, I'm going to go see him. I'm going to I got to go ask him. And I had one question on my mind that I wanted to ask him. And the question was, Adam, please, will you give all this another shot? Will you fight harder for your life than you've been fighting? That's what I wanted to tell him. And so, but the day I was going to go see him, he was released and he was in the wind, no phone, nothing. And so I'm like, well, shit. So I started hearing reports of some Adam sightings. And he was sighted.
Can't miss the hard
He was
part.
sighted up here in Kent on 240th. So I spent the day at this McDonald's by 240th. By the way, I was forced to eat McDonald's breakfast and McDonald's lunch. The sacrifices I made for Adam. So I'm sitting in this McDonald's. I ate breakfast. I sat longer, and then finally I saw a gentleman walking, and I showed Adam's picture to a lot of people, but this guy, he said, yeah, he's right back over there in these apartments. I was like, okay, let's roll. So we go back to these trapped out apartments called the Phoenix Court Apartments. And I'm able to get through the gate. And then I see another black guy walk in, and I go, have you seen this dude? Because the other guy left me. I think he was just trying to steal my wallet, but he didn't get it. And so then all of a sudden the guy goes, no, he's right over here in this apartment. And the guy, I go over to the apartment, walk up to the apartment with the guy knocks on the door, and Adam opens the door. And I just said, come on, man, it's over. That's all I said to him. No, hell. Oh, fuck, I tell you, you're gonna go. No, I just said, Adam, that was how easy it was, and that's how ready he was. It was that simple. I just said, come on, Adam, it's over, let's go. And he just put down his things, and he looked at the two people in the apartment, and he said, I'm done, guys. And he came in. And that's how easy we're finding it right now to get people into treatment. That easy, just a simple ask. And that's how telling what we're trying to say is that there is outreach after outreach after outreach of organizations. Just think of this. Just think, if your loved one was sitting there folded up on fentanyl, and the question that's asked to them and the outreach that's given to them isn't, we need to get you off fentanyl, then what would it be? What would it be? What would it be that would be helpful? Anything that they would give would perpetuate it. And we're seeing, and what we're saying is, yes, maybe a blanket is an olive branch. Fine. Maybe we need to do that to build trust, but that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing the blanket given, and then the people never make contact again. We're seeing the phones handed out and never. I thought about it when we're on the streets with Max and Adam. Maybe we need to hand out phones, but that would be only for one reason. So we could keep contacting them every day until they got into treatment. But that's the only reason. But they're actually just handing out phones to our loved ones. And for what? What do you think they're using the phone for?
Eco ATM.
Yeah, they're only using the phone to get drugs. That's it. And so if it was an olive branch, that would be a different story, but it's just not. And it's organization after organization. I learned something the other day. There's a difference between a nonprofit and a charity. And when you apply charity to drug addiction, you make it worse. When you apply action in our formula of compassion, one helping another, being part of a club, bringing somebody to the next directional point on the trail, having that point for them, showing them that point, walking them further, standing there with their suffering and being a part of it and understanding it deeply so that they can trust you to come along. There's the formula. And that's what we're trying to practice. So I hope that helps everyone. And in your family, that's what you got to do. You all knew if you had somebody in addiction in your family, you got to find somebody that's been in addiction to help. You really do. And if you take them somewhere else, they might do some harm. They might actually defend their behavior. They might actually perpetuate their behavior. They might actually not walk them out of suffering, but join them in kind of a playful little area in the wilderness where they're provided the ability to stay in that suffering. So thank you. We'll see you guys next week.
Join us, Moss. Good night.